Throughout my career as a hotelier, as a general manager, or even the other positions that I worked in, for me, it's very important, exactly what you said, to enjoy yourself, to have fun. Yes, I'm a general manager. I'm not a slave driver, and I really try to understand people's perspective. And I go out of my way to greet people and make them feel a part of the family and not just another number in the team. So from a management level, it's very important to try and make people feel welcome and to thank them. Again, you very rightly mentioned that there's an Asian culture which comes into play. And sometimes in Asia, it's not so easy because if you're too kind, people don't respect you. If you're too hard, people don't respect you. If you don't understand the culture, you get completely lost and the people won't listen to you because you're not respecting them.
Welcome back to the Social Hotelier podcast with me, Sam-Erik. Today, learn about opening of a hotel in Vietnam. My guest today is no other than Hilton Lipkin. He's the general manager for Garia Mukang Chai and Om Tu Le at Banyan Tree Group. How was that? How was the pronunciation?
Very impressive. Very impressive. Yeah.
I practiced hard. Well, in addition, we know each other from Hilton is very well known as a member of the Global Wellness Institute of Wellness Tourism Initiatives. And also we are active, both of us, in the hospitality think tank. And Hilton brings a lot of value in our think tank. It's always about the sustainability aspect that he brings up front. So I'm always listening and learning from Hilton. So good to have you here on this episode. And thank you very much for joining this episode, Hilton.
No, thank you, Sam-Erik. It's great to see you again, and it's great to speak. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm honored, and I'm very impressed with your pronunciation of Mukanchai and Tule. So yes, thank you very much, and great to be here.
So we can dive into the not so much about logistics, but the things that you are in the middle, or you have opened the hotel, or you're in a soft opening period of the hotel, and for how long has this project? How long have you been involved with the project for this particular hotel?
Well, actually, I personally have only been involved since May last year, so maybe we can say almost 1.5 years, or just over 1 year. But the project itself has been on the go for 8 years. So there's a lot of history, and I'm sure as we get further on into this conversation, those elements will definitely come up in our conversation. But to answer your question, I've been here just over a year on this project.
Okay, and and the brand it's a Banyan Tree branded resort.
Correct. So a HMA was signed, a hotel management agreement was signed with the local owners and Banyan Group. We recently changed the name from Banyan Tree to Banyan Group. So the brand of this hotel is Garia, which is one of the brands now under the Banyan Group. And yeah, we manage that as a hotel management agreement.
Fantastic. So I know the Banyan Group from many years back. This particular brand that you're representing and the resort, what makes it unique within the portfolio of Banyan Group?
So as you know from way back when you used to work in Laguna, I think it was in Phuket, Banyan Tree and Ansana were the two major brands within the group. And then 3 years ago, Banyan Group developed this brand called Garia, which is an upscale brand more focused on well-being. So still a high-end hospitality, everything else that we offer within all our other properties, but there's an element of well-being and sustainability, which is my personal passion, linked in there as well.
Okay, very good. I think that really fits your niche of as a leader in the industry. That's fantastic. One of my favorite topics always, and gone through a few openings during my history as a general manager and so on, is staff recruitment. And the thing is about how to define the culture for the prospective employees and during the recruitment process, and what qualities to prioritize. So tell me about your process and what you have been going through bringing on board your team for this project?
You know, Sam-Erik, like yourself, so many years of experience, you think you've got it. You think you've got it covered. You think that whatever happened in that last property with that person that you employed that just didn't work out, you're not going to let that happen again. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
To find the right people and, like you mentioned, to get the right philosophy and the right feeling going in the team is very difficult. Interviewing someone, speaking to them in Facebook, looking at their CV is definitely a very important part of trying to find out who that person is. But the reality is, when that person gets there, when the person does the job, when the person's put under pressure, when the person finds themselves in a new environment and they've lost all their sense of belonging, they just somehow don't seem to be the same person that you interviewed. But I think we've been very lucky. One of the very big challenges about this property, which we didn't mention in the beginning, is we are pretty far off the beaten track. We are a 6 hour drive from Hanoi City, which is the capital city of Vietnam. It's beautiful up in the mountains. It's very remote. It's amazing, but it is far away. So not only was the challenge to find the right people and to have the right philosophy and have the expertise that you require, but it was also a very big element of, would you come all this way and will you stay there, because it's very isolated. So with regards to recruitment in general, it's difficult, but there were definitely added layers to make this property or this project even more complicated.
Okay. With staffing and having an experience of opening in isolated locations, staff housing and transportation, and just bringing that all together, what support did you get in terms of getting what you needed in order to provide that kind of facilities for the staff, that they are comfortable or coming to a place maybe they've never been before to work?
Actually, to take one step back before I answer that question, is the ethos or the philosophy of this project was to try and hire as many local people as we could. And I'm proud to say we have over 75% of our team that are local. But with that comes additional challenges. But to answer your question, within the project, within the development and the planning, there was or is associate staffing accommodation, staffing food, staffing transport. That is all included. So again, when we were interviewing people and explaining to them everything, we also say that, you know, you have a private apartment or you're sharing an apartment depending on your level. I must admit, though, the staff housing may not be the most upscale luxury, but when they open the window or stand on the terrace, they have an amazing view of the mountains. But that's not always the selling factor, unfortunately, but or the
Yeah.
buy-in factor. But we do have accommodation, and we do also account for logistics in terms of things like that. It
Yeah.
sounds easy when I'm speaking to you, and boom, boom, no problem. But actually, in reality, every single day there's something we didn't think of.
Sure. Uh, Can you share us some example of particular challenging position to fill, and how your team approached the overcoming the recruitment obstacles to secure that kind of ideal candidate for the position?
One of the major challenges with setting up hotels anywhere in the world, not specific to Vietnam, is how much are you going to pay? What is the budget? You know, if you're going to pay these astronomical salaries, you can find anyone from anywhere in the world. You can literally poach people from, you know, go into a hotel, find an amazing F&B manager, and you go, wow. And then you say, how much do you make? Offer him additional and bring him on. But in reality, that's not always the case. So, as I mentioned before, our idea was to have as many local people as possible. So, one of the key elements for us was to find specific people, supervisor, manager position, with very strong English. Unfortunately, nobody speaks Finnish, and that was not a criteria in the job description. So sorry for everyone in Finland, but this is not only for Finland, only for you. I'm saying that, but English is obviously a very high criteria and something we needed. So when we went out looking for people, we changed the budget in such a way that we could find and offer a reasonable salary to specific key positions that had experience, and then obviously English. Another challenge, though, is in Vietnam, you have the North and the South. And actually, the experience levels don't necessarily complement each other. When people have worked in the South, they don't necessarily or not necessarily able to work in the North and vice versa. So again, if we had the choice, we try to recruit people from the north of Vietnam. But again, it's not always the case because language, distance, location, things like that. So to answer your question, English is a key position. Experience within hospitality is a key criteria. Sorry, criteria, not position. And then experience, and the will to come out this way and work with us.
And then, are they coming from the similar villages, or are they kind of, particularly from the north, so that you're bringing maybe almost like a community to work for you, or how does it work?
Interesting question. So the more experienced people who we can say are imported from Hanoi, Saigon, or Da Nang, or the bigger cities, that's just individuals from around the country. But the regional people, I won't say we took a whole village and brought them to the hotel. We may, and I'm not aware of that, but there are a few cousins and brothers and sisters definitely that have joined us. But we put the word out, and then people came for interviews from the surrounding area. So it's a mix of everything. We definitely haven't hired a whole village to my knowledge, but we do have a mix of people from around the area. But when I say from around the area, it's not necessarily 25 kilometers. It's within a 100-kilometer radius. Because you got to remember, from one town to the other town, there's maybe 40 kilometers of mountain roads. So we may be within the same region, but 100 kilometers is not really far because there's nothing between those two places.
Yeah.
So it's a mix of everything around the region.
Okay. In terms of getting the staff ready for the job and the culture and the training and development, how can you speak about that? What have you done, or what is that your team done in order to create a strategy and to put in place to support the career growth for those people, and that they just didn't come to clean a room, but they maybe have a longer perspective with you?
Even coming to clean the room takes a specific amount of skill and training. So at every level, there is definitely training. First of all, as I mentioned before, the key positions, the people with experience or the people who have that English level, those people are very important. So you use those people as a foundation, because otherwise it's a case of the blind leading the blind. So you really need to have specific people who you can count on. And I don't necessarily, I hope, have to hold their hand. Sometimes I do. So they will then identify their team and they will train them. Initial plan was 1 month of training. Due to delays, we've had close to 2.5 months worth of training, which has really, really helped us. If you don't have strong people in place to train, you're definitely going to have a problem, because the challenges are enormous, not just language, but experience as well. And when you hire local people who've never worked in a hotel before, it's all well and good. But what you and I would consider completely logical towards the way you treat a guest or the way you handle a situation, for them, not at all. So sometimes you really, really need to go down to string basics and, explain to them how you work in a hotel. Then over and above that, this is your job. These are the SOPs, these are the SOSs, this is the do's, this is the don'ts. So there's a lot of levels to training the people. Yeah, we've done quite well. People are happy, but there's always room for improvement, as you know yourself.
Sure. A very important part we both know for working in Asia is a fun element. That there should be a fun element, and that so it's not serious that you have your wrinkles on your forehead and trying to get everything done so efficiently. What kind of fun elements have you introduced to make the staff kind of at ease learning about this, maybe a new skill that they have to learn, and looking at working in a hotel?
Throughout my career as a hotelier, as a general manager, or even the other positions that I worked in, for me, it's very important, exactly what you said, to enjoy yourself, to have fun. Yes, I'm a general manager. I'm not a slave driver, and I really try to understand people's perspective. And I go out of my way to greet people and make them feel a part of the family and not just another number in the team. So, from a management level, it's very important to try and make people feel welcome and to thank them. Again, you very rightly mentioned that there's an Asian culture which comes into play. And sometimes in Asia, it's not so easy because if you're too kind, people don't respect you. If you're too hard, people don't respect you. If you don't understand the culture, you get completely lost and the people won't listen to you because you're not respecting them. So there's a lot of different elements in every country in Asia is also different, but there's all those elements that you need to consider and understand in order to have the team understand where I'm coming from or where we're coming from or where they're coming from. But first and foremost, if you're not enjoying your job, it just makes it so much more difficult. And we both know a lot of people work for money. Uh, they, especially in our case, a lot of people came to the hotel to work with us, not knowing what actually they're going to be doing or what it's all about. They're getting more money than they were getting before, so that's already an element. But then they need to enjoy themselves as well. So you have to find that balance between giving people a lot, but not giving them too much, and respecting them and appreciating them. A thank you and a smile, as you very well know, can go a long, long, long way, not only in hospitality, in any industry. And sometimes we lose sight of that.
Yeah,
And when we're stressed out with 400 guests screaming and someone made a mistake, we can't lose sight of the fact that they're doing their best.
sure. Is there any element, just looking back at my own experiences, that considering the family of those employees, I'm not sure how you got into a situation where, for instance, where it's really appreciated if you attend some particular family functions that they have, or if there is for instance, a wedding or family or a funeral, that you actually show up and pay and show the respect to the parents of the employee or something like that. Can you give some examples how it works in Vietnam? Since I'm not quite familiar about the culture, but about the importance.
With pleasure. It is important. It's very, very important. And being a Westerner or a non-Asian, if I, for example, in the past, I've been to funerals of some of my team members, and their parents, their grandparents, whoever it is, are blown away. So they really appreciate the respect. It's actually been extremely interesting to go to some of these ceremonies. It's really an eye opener, but I do it out of respect for them, obviously. Uh, Funerals, I've been to many, unfortunately, not necessarily our associates, but their family, or our staff, but their family. I actually made the mistake of going to somebody's wedding a couple of years ago, one of our housekeeping attendants. Besides the fact that I almost went deaf because the music was so loud, um, I won't do that again. But it's a very difficult one because if you go to one wedding, you need to go to all the weddings. If you go to one funeral, you don't necessarily have to go to all the funerals because they don't expect it. You always get, or I always get invitations, but I need to choose my functions that I can go to. Just because if I do one, I need to do them all. But it's very interesting, and again, like we spoke about before, embracing the culture and being a part of your team and showing them the respect. And it's not just because it's a book or a thing to do to gain their respect. It's actually very interesting. And
Yeah,
you lived in Asia, I live in Asia. We learn about the culture, things that we don't learn about, in any other form of education. So
yeah,
it's always enriching, but
yeah.
there's a fine line. Yes.
Very good. Now let's move over a little bit about sort of the choosing the equipment and suppliers and partners when you are opening. How does it work for you in terms of that whatever you choose aligns with the vision, resort vision, and luxury and sustainability? I'm sure you're quite concerned that the sustainability aspects of when you're choosing your suppliers?
There's quite a few elements. Obviously, for me, first and foremost would be the most sustainable option, but it's not my money. So that definitely, as we know around the world, that's an element that comes into play, because who's paying and how much. Um, Banyan Group has a certain standard, like most other hotel groups in the world, saying we need this, it needs to be this color, it needs to be this quality. So it makes life a lot easier when we go to the owner and say, right, we need 300 of these cups. They need to look like this. They need to be this quality. So then they go out, they source it, and they come back and they say, this is what we found. And then, we move on. It isn't per se my decision to choose everything, because actually there's a standard buyout list for the company. Where things deviate is price and quality, because the owner is paying. There are certain areas of the property where it's up to the general manager to make it happen and find an idea and then purchase those products or recommend those products. I'll give you a very good example is the fitness center of this property. The Banyan Group gave us a certain criteria, but that was it. And it was very expensive and just not practical. So I went back and I spoke to a couple of suppliers, because I know about fitness, and then went back to the owners, and we mixed and matched and we juggled. And then we came out with something that really fitted the Banyan Group idea, the owner's pocket, and my vision. So those kinds of things do work, but it's not always the case. We had a problem with our mattresses. We have a new standard in the company where we now have 2 single mattresses that we put together with a comforter on the top. So you get a king size bed and 2 twins. So you have the best of both worlds. You can have a twin bed and you can have a king. Well, the owner had already bought the mattresses, so it didn't work. So Banyan Group had to step back and say, well, you've already bought 100 mattresses. We're not going to tell you to rebuy them. But as long as the mattresses are the right thickness, the right foam, those kinds of things. So it's basically the standard of the company with the agreement of the owner to purchase it, and the GM to supervise wherever possible.
Okay. And my favorite topic is the choice of staff uniforms. How much did you get involved in design or choosing the consultant, or how did that work out to choose the staff uniforms? Because that sets apart the resort in many ways.
It's quite funny you're asking me all these questions, because I'm thinking back of the days when this happened and now we're wearing them, and how the process was. It's really enjoyable, I must admit. It sounds like now I can sit here and I can go, actually, we have done something to get to this point. The uniforms, again, the company has this philosophy of what we call beauty in simplicity. So for the Garia brand, our slogan is beauty and simplicity, which basically means we need to have something elegant, but not over the top. Then they give us some pictures. So I was actually personally involved with the designer and the uniform company, where they came in and they drew some ideas and they showed us, and the colors and obviously the local material that we had. Then I go back to Banyan Group and I say, this is our idea. Oh no, put a button there, change this, that's too long, that's too sexy, change this. Go back to the owner, to the supplier, get it all designed. They agree. Then will the owner pay for it? And then it comes through. And I must admit, exactly as I'm explaining it to you now, is pretty much how it went. And we have the uniforms, and a lot of people like them. The team are very happy to wear them, which is very important. They take pride in their appearance, which is a very important element. And they feel good, they look good. The owner likes them, the company likes them. So at the end of the day, it was a very successful project. I'm not a fashion designer. I have worked in other companies like yourself, so we can take pictures of other uniforms and go, definitely not like that, but we really love that. But can we tweak it to do something a little bit like that? That's pretty much how we did it.
Okay, very good. No, it has always been one of my favorite topics, because it's always to find the right balance in terms of choosing not over the top fashionable and material that is not going to be durable, it's going to doesn't last very long, but to find the right happy medium. So yeah, that's very nice. In terms of the project team management that you led, I thought it would be interesting for the viewers and listeners to understand a little bit your process, how did you prioritize tasks and manage resources to stay within the budget and schedule constraints throughout the resort's construction and the development phases or the pre-opening. So could you speak about that?
Uh, there's a whiteboard in front of me, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 delay dates on that whiteboard, and I actually haven't put the 7th yet. So that's the answer to your question.
Okay.
When it's beyond your control, unfortunately, it's incredibly frustrating. So you need to pick your battles, and you need to find areas that you can control. The project team, like in everything in life, we see it from our perspective. But the project manager or the project team have their priorities, they have their goals, and they have their timeline. And what makes it more complicated is they were painting everything in green, and we come along and say, no more green, yellow, which messes up their timeline, their priorities, their orders, and their costing. So you have to find certain areas where you just say, okay, guys, let me know when you're going to be finished. Please, I don't like this. The company standard is not that. Give me a timeline, but you need to change it.
Yeah.
And then you just need to fight. But saying that, it never works out like that. In the end, there's always extra. We opening in a couple of days, and I'm still seeing so many people running around. The other day, I saw them changing all the signage. I'm like, why are you changing the signage? No one even told me. So you have to, like I said, find the areas that you can concentrate on. We do have a timeline. I must admit, for this project, it was the first time I used a software called Task World, or I think Task World or something, and it gives you all the priorities in dates and then sends you messages on your phone or on your email. Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? In the beginning, I just wanted to, disconnect and throw it away. But in reality, they kept popping up versus going to an Excel spreadsheet and finding them and then ticking them off. So it was a very useful tool, a bit of a pain, but a very useful tool. So it's kept me on track. And then it's also not allowed for things to fall through the cracks because I still keep getting the email if I haven't done it. So that I think, as we all know, technology has definitely crept into everything that we do today, and this online software system has definitely been very beneficial. But the
Okay.
human factor is always a conflict, and you just have to manage that.
Sure. The communication is a key in project management. How did you ensure the transparent communication channels among stakeholders, both internal and external, to mitigate misunderstandings and delays? Because I think we all have our horror stories about you said one thing and it was understood because it went through so many people that it changed everything.
I think you and I can probably share many, many experiences of lost in communication because not everyone speaks English. My Vietnamese is definitely not enough to have a meeting with a project manager. So that is very, very difficult. Sending emails, resending the resent emails, and then following up on the resend emails, and still nobody's answered, happens all the time. uh, then someone from the outside will come in. So you need to, again, be very well organized in terms of what is pending, who have you spoken to, and follow up. My rule of thumb is after every verbal communication, I send an email, not to put them under pressure, yes, kind of, but also that I have in my sent box what we spoke about on that day. Because tomorrow there's another 5 things, and the next day there's another 5 things, and you actually forget about that. And so do they, very conveniently forget about it, but we forget about it as well. So it's very important to know what you've said, what was promised, and then be able to follow up and follow up. It doesn't always work, but at least you have the documentation. And as you mentioned, that lost in communication, which you said green, I understood yellow, at least you have it in writing. And I've
Yeah.
learned that over the years, that having it in writing won't necessarily solve the problem, but it will give you peace of mind. And at least you can go back in the end, and the wall still may be green and you wanted it yellow, but you have that documentation saying you were going to make it yellow. So I
Yeah.
think that's very important.
Talking about the handover to the opening of the hotel, at what point are you now, when we're recording? At what stage is the hotel now? Is it the construction fully completed and it's been handed over to you, or where are you now?
We can see that you've been through all of this before. You're asking those critical questions. From the project manager's perspective, everything is handed over. From the operations team, no, not yet. That pretty much sums it up. Uh, in the beginning, I think when you start doing handover, the project team thinks it's going to be very quick. We've given you the room, we've cleaned it, and then you go back and you go, this light is scratched, that piece of wood is scratched, this television is broken. And then they start realizing, and then the next handover section is a bit more professional, a bit more professional, a bit more professional. As it stands today, we have 95% of the rooms handed over, documented and signed off. Most of the outlets on the property are handed over, documented, and signed off. So when we say documented and signed off, means that we've agreed on pending scratches or switches or lights. We've agreed on testing and commissioning, and we've agreed that we will take over if they fix this or if it's ready. So we have 98% of the hotel ready to go. We actually already have guests in the hotel. The owner has been sending us a lot of guests that have been staying with us. And then again, that's what we call testing as well. They stay in the room and they tell us the plug doesn't work. They flush the toilet. We try check all the rooms, but you have to have people staying in them. So the handover is very, very important. Again, documentation, 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 because for the project team, the sooner they can get rid of it and give it to you, that's like my job is done. But
Exactly.
the problem for us is once the project team says that room's yours, the next day the geyser in the roof breaks, the lights fuse, and the project manager goes, I handed over that room. It's not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we take it over knowing that we're happy with it.
Okay, very good. Now, in terms of the marketing of the resort, the pre-opening marketing and promotional strategies, what role does it play for you in generating anticipations and bookings for the resort launch?
If we didn't have 7 delays, it would have been easy. But in retrospect, the 7 delays have helped us because we've actually mentioned it 7 times already. Unfortunately, there are a few unhappy people along the way because they were supposed to already be staying. But the marketing is pretty much 8 months to 9 months ahead of time. We have, again, a plan from our head office of a global release and information that goes out. And then we have our own marketing team that go out and send out different things and speak with different people. We actually only finished our photo shoot last week, our official photo shoot. So on our webpage and all the advertising that we've been doing up to date has been generic pictures, computer generated or 3D images that we made, that the project team made or the architect made. So now that we have some beautiful, very live, I think maybe you've seen the one that I shared this week, some beautiful images that really speak. So that speaks volumes and brings people and shows them the area as well. But the marketing has been going on for the last couple of months. Social media, obviously, like everyone else, press releases, working with partners, those kinds of activities are ongoing and continuously ongoing.
Very good. Can you touch a little bit? We touched on staff recruitment here earlier, but how about your staff training and what kind of training programs that are tailored for your particular brand and the resort, and in order to create some sort of the standard that the staff that is now maybe new to hospitality and definitely new to the brand, what methodologies and approaches have you incorporated to get the staff well prepared to meet the resort service standards?
One of the key objectives or elements of the pre-opening is to hire what we call a development and learning manager or supervisor or in charge. So we were very lucky to find a young lady who didn't have hotel experience, but very good in training and development. She gets a package from Banyan Group. The package is the DNA of Banyan Group, and her mission is to make sure that everybody understands this DNA. What is the brand? What is Garia? What are we about? Where do we come from? What is service excellence? Why do we do this? What is our history? That has been her major role for the last 3 months. Indoctrinate everybody into Banyan Group philosophy. Each department thereafter goes into what are you doing in F&B? What is your service standard? How do you do it? What do we expect from you? Teach you, learn. The chef will create a menu. Then the chef will have to train that menu, find the team, train the team, and then we taste it, we check it, and we go out. Same thing for housekeeping, same thing for spa, same thing for everything. Actually, spa is a little bit different. We had what we call a pre-opening task force. So we have an international trainer who comes from Phuket and spends nearly 3 months with the ladies, the team, and teaches them how to become massage therapists. None of them had experience. So every single day, this is a hand, this is the nails, this is the oil, this is what you do, and again, and again, and again, and again, and So each individual department has done their specific training as per their department head. And then overall, we have what we call learning and development from Banyan Group, which is a big package of DNA information that is sent out to everybody. We're also very lucky in Banyan Group, we have an online library which we call LMS, and it's learning online. And there are many courses, workshops, training sessions, SOPs, PDFs of everything and anything in the company. And any one of our team members can actually log on when they have a logon code and watch 1 hour, 2 hours, watch the session, watch that philosophy. And every month they have to do a minimum of 5 hours of online Banyan Group training as well, over and above their department training and their DNA training with Banyan Group. So there's a lot going on. And saying all of that, there's still people who don't know or fall behind, and you need to push them.
That's fantastic, and it really sounds very well organized. The kind of support you're getting from the Banyan Group of having all this training material, is all translated obviously to Vietnamese, or they're expected to understand English in terms of in a learning curve?
Because we have had a property in Vietnam for 10 years now, we have 2 properties in well, we have more now. But in central Vietnam, we have a banyan tree and an ansana who are now on the 11th year of operation. They have already actually translated everything. So our team click on VN and not E, English, EN. So to answer your question, most of it is already in Vietnamese, yes, which helps a lot.
Good. So my final question, Hilton, is that if you, I know there's still some work to be done before the hotel is fully completed and handed over, and you had a number of international guests or domestic guests. But if you have some, maybe three highlights of being part of the project, what would be those 3 things that you will maybe bring back when you think back one of these days when we meet for noodles or coffee somewhere, when we're sharing that? I will ask you the question: what were those 3 things that you felt was the most memorable things about opening that resort?
I think last weekend was actually one of those experiences. Is the first time I arrived at the property, we have this huge reception made out of bamboo. It's very impressive. And I remember arriving the first day and walking up the stairs and looking at this and like, wow. And last weekend, I was standing there and there were 50 people booking in. There were guests standing in that area. At that time when I was there was dust and construction sites and scaffolding, and it was exactly the same spot, but yet it was clean, set up, and there were actual people checking in, and it was really like a time lapse. It just went from when is this going to happen to they're already here. That was a major thing. Another thing was when we hired our first local staff member, associate, a Hmong lady. She was our first lady that we hired, a public attendant in housekeeping. And I've seen her flourish. And she's actually part of the video that we just made. That to me was pretty impressive, to thinking all this time, like, where are we going to find these people? How are we going to do this? And then to identifying them and seeing them growing within the process is really pretty cool.
Excellent.
And you want a third one. Wow, a third one. I don't know that I'm still smiling after all this time. Being out here, I think it's the same for you or any general manager, to go from sitting in a room looking at a piece of paper to actually sitting in the restaurant and eating and having the kitchen and buying the gas and signing off on buying some vegetables. It's an amazing thing. You never think it's going to actually happen. And then the worst part is you sign that first vegetable purchase order, and then the next week you sign 300 more, and then that 5 minutes of wow is gone, and the business just keeps going. But it's exciting.
Yeah, I can sense that it's been a very good. I learned so much about and it brings memories back about opening hotels. So
I'm sure.
So Hilton, just the final question is that if people want to reach out and find, how can they find you, and where should they go to find out about the resort, and how could they connect with you?
It's very simple, actually. They can just go to garrya.com. That's GARRYA, garrya.com. And then I just click on garrya.com, and we only have 5 Garrya properties around the world, and Morgan Chai is one of them. Otherwise, just go to the Banyan Group webpage and then scroll down to Garrya and click on Garrya. You can find us on Facebook, but the best way is just to come. Get on a plane, fly to Hanoi, and then just drive to Morgan Chai. It's very beautiful, and come visit us.
Very good. Just looking at the pictures, it's such a stunning area that it must be on everyone's bucket list to visit one of these days. So, Hilton, thank you very much, and I just from all of us here at the show and from behalf of the audience, best of success in the opening, and look forward to hearing more about the resort in the future. Thanks for joining us this week on the Social Hotelier Show. Make sure to visit our website, the Social Hotelier Show, blueberry.net, where you can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Play, or via RSS, so you never miss a show. While you're at it, if you find value in this show, we appreciate a rating in Apple Podcast. Or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that will help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.